And so we are now live. All right, you guys, we're going to start with a little PowerPoint. So let me share my screen and we'll start the presentation. I just want to give you a little bit of a kind of a background as to drafting film. It is a totally unique surface for colored pencil. I think a lot of people who see it for the first time cannot believe that it is actually colored pencil on there. So you're probably wondering, well, what is drafting film? It is a semi-translucent polyester surface. So it's a man-made surface. What's really nice about it is that it is archival. It's this plastic that just stays around forever. My favorite kind is the double-sided matte graphics drafting film. And I like it better than Duralar because it has just a little bit more tooth to it. Um, you can see my illustration here is of a cactus flower. It was my very first attempt after taking Karen Hull's workshop as to drawing on drafting film. And I was happy with the kind of depth that I got once I started going on the back. There is Duralar, which is available in a lot of the art stores. But if you try it, I think you'll find that it is just slightly slicker. And so it's a little harder to get as many layers as I use on it, front and back, but it is an option if you can't get the graphics drafting film. What's strange is that graphics makes Duralar, so I don't know why they have different kinds, but they do. Um, so the thing that makes drafting film so unique is that it makes it extremely erasable and traceable. It's semi-translucent, and so you can see right through it, which means you can just put your image right behind your film, trace a quick outline. You know, I've got an art major. I can draw, but I prefer to trace just because it's faster. What I love about colored pencil is getting into the rendering of the form. And so I put as few lines as I can on my paper, and then I just go to the fun part. There's a lot of freehand drawing within my drawings, but the outline is usually traced. This was kind of a neat thing that I learned after taking Tracy Frine's workshop. This is drafting film that has been erased. You know, I erased the lights and I put in the darks after creating my own kind of unique background. That background was created by putting two wet sheets of drafting film together. I scribbled all over it just like Tracy Frine does, and then I brushed it around with a great big paintbrush, and then I put another piece on top of it and swished it around, creating all these weird kind of abstract things. And I thought it just made a really kind of edgy background for this guy, Joel. He was one of my students from high school, and he came back to visit me one day after school. I go, Joel, I would really love to draw you. And he goes, what do you want me to do, Mrs. D? And I said, I'd love to try a perspective drawing where you have foreshortening of that hand coming straight out at you. And so he had a little bit of a smirk on his face and he pointed to me. But I was really happy that I felt like I made a difference in his life because he went on to take computer graphics in college and he was trying to be a computer graphics artist. So I'm glad I was able to touch his life in such a meaningful way. This is another student of mine. She walked into my classroom and I went gaga over her hair. She had hair down to her waist, just massive curls and streaked with highlights. And I said, Jocelyn, I have to draw you. And so I did this drawing in class, and she would run to class every day to see how it looked. And she was just such a beautiful girl. And she did the little cats in the cradle thing because she was a senior taking my Art 1-2 class, and I thought that this was a good kind of sign of passage going from, you know, childhood into adulthood, because she was about ready to leave the high school setting. This was a really good illustration of how I could put a different color mat board underneath. It goes back to that translucence. It is such a powerful tool with this drafting film. The color that I put under it was kind of a golden color, and what it did was it made it into almost a sepia-like drawing. It gave it a lot more life, I felt, because I had been just, you know, I laid my drawing on a birch colored tabletop, and I liked how it looked. And so I thought, hey, I'm going to try something different. So that's an option for you guys too. This is Joel again. I started this drawing of him with the colors on his face, and I found that they were too bright. They were super bright. And then I turned it over and I thought, yes, this is more like what I'm after. And this is an extreme view of his hand. Being able to get in there with all the little lines and textures, his skin was so evident of that kind of texture. Anne, are you back with us again? Oh, I don't know.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Oh, good. And you're able to see the PowerPoint?
Yes, beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, good. So one of the things that I really found out, though, is the power of working on the back of the film. What I usually do is I focus on the darkest areas, like back in his hair and things like that. And by the way, this background here is similar to the other one that I showed you. This is that second sheet of drafting film that I had put on dry on top of the wet one. And so you can use both sheets. They're going to give you a totally different effect. But I like the kind of weird things that would accidentally happen. I like that kind of randomness in artwork, because I could not draw that if I tried. But doing kind of experimental things will kind of move your artwork to a different level.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So you said it's wet, the drafting film is wet. Do you use water? Is it the terpenoid? What do you wet it with?
Yeah.
Terpenoid. Okay.
I was using terpenoid. That's the solvent that Tracy Frine recommends.
Okay.
You can use Gamsol, it works, but it's a little greasy. And so it inhibits how much more pencil you can put on it. Terpenoid is really pure. And so that's my choice of solvent. For this one, this is called Solar Power, and it really illustrates the power of working on the back. The one on the left here is from the front, and the one on the right is the back. And you can see that I only put it on the darkest areas, and that way they became really rich. I also used a luminance pencil. They're a really expensive brand, but I use them sparingly, and they're so solid. I was just really able to lay it in there and get a very matte kind of finish on the front. You don't see any streaks in those super dark areas. And I think that's an important thing to kind of utilize. I really wanted my flowers and the sun sign to like glow. So I let the light pass through it. It's kind of like watercolor. You let the paper shine through your watercolor. You let your lights be the paper sometimes. And so I took that concept and applied it to this colored pencil work. One of the things I love about drafting film is how much detail you can get, because the tooth of it is so fine that you can use a very sharp pencil and you can really get in there. Now this queen here, she was from the Renaissance Festival. She's huge, okay? this was like the biggest drafting film project that I have done so far. It's like about 3 feet by 4 feet. But I think I'm going to show you some techniques today that will show you how fast it can really go. I use the Neo colors on the background here. And so I was able to just scribble it on, use some solvent on it, and I was able to get the depth that I wanted her to really be. Not in anything that was kind of busy. I wanted it to be kind of plain, and I was able to get this cool like texture in it just by rubbing a paper towel on it. Now, this did take me about 4 months to do. To date, it is the longest colored pencil drawing that I've done so far. This is one that I was so happy to have accepted in the American Women Artists Show this year. In fact, tonight is the awards ceremony. They're going to announce winners, and I've been crossing my fingers and toes that this might win something. But oh my gosh, there are so many professional artists that are in that group that, yeah, I would have to be very, very lucky to get an award. But I don't know. I love the cactus of Arizona. And since I moved to this community of Anthem, I'm just mesmerized by all of the different blooms. It's almost like walking around a desert botanical garden around here. And this is called a giant Argentine. Now, I wanted a super dramatic background for this one because I was calling it Showtime. Like these flowers like are on stage with a spotlight on them. That's how I felt the light was hitting them. And so all of those little spines you see, those little needles that come out of the cactus, those were all erased out. And so it was actually kind of easy to do once you got your basic shape shaded in. Those were just erased out. And
Wow.
I think I use the Neocolor one, which is the totally wax pastel. I asked you guys to get the Neocolor 2 because they have a better range of colors. And I think that they're just as good for what we use them for. I've tried water as a solvent on them before, and it just got wild. I couldn't control it. And so I prefer not to use water. If anything, I would use a little terpenoid on it to blend it. But that was a fun one. And this one, now it doesn't use Neocolors for the background, but it does show how you can get a really smooth blend using the solvent. So today we're going to be experimenting with backgrounds. You're going to be able to do one with just pencil like this, and you can use solvent on it. We're also going to use the Neocolors. For those of you who have an Icarus board, we're going to use some heat. I'll talk about what you can use if you don't have an Icarus board to get the same kind of effect. But this one has been kind of a favorite of mine. This orchid tree was outside my classroom that I taught, for 26 years in Glendale. And I just loved every spring that these darn flowers came out. And I finally took a picture of it and was able to do, this is a really large piece too. It's 36 inches wide. The way that I was able to capture this kind of shaded effect up here was by putting a wash of black behind it. So I scribbled black on there, and then I just smoothed it out with a tissue, and I was able to just kind of knock it down. And I think that's one of the things you have to kind of learn to do as an artist. Find the things that you want to pop, to come forward, and emphasize those, and then push back from the backside things that you don't want to pop out, and then you can achieve some really great depth. I do want to share with you that there are some other different brands that work really well on drafting film. Prismacolor is what I started with, and I think they work great. But lately I've been using the Derwent Lightfast, and they're super cool. They go on very nice. They are kind of expensive, but when you look at their Lightfast rating, I think it's really worth it to make sure that all of your colors stick around for a very long time. Polychromos are fantastic colors too, and I used a lot of polychromos in this piece because of the pinks. Not all of the brands have that full range of colors, and so that's why I use them on this one. Now on the background for this one, it is using the Neocolor 2 because I was able to get the kind of coloration that I was looking for. And then this is my last image here to share with you of a tree that I did. I called it Beyond the Green Line because it's a Palo Verde tree, which are very popular here in Arizona. I love the twisting, turning, crazy branches. And all of those branches were erased out of a green background. And then I added different shades of green and blue and yellow to bring certain branches forward and send other ones back. So again, the great benefits of drafting film are the fact that it's translucent, it's erasable, it's traceable, it's double-sided for depth, and a great way to add detail to your work. So I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. Are there any questions?
Barbara, I have something I can share with you since you like to play with it. This is one of my very first projects on film, and I mounted it on wood.
Oh, that's cool. Nice detail on those feathers. Sweet.
I painted the wood black with a paper plate over it to keep the white. Then I cut out the paper plate thing and painted white in the center and just mounted the film directly on the wood. So I use it as a background.
Yes, you can use all kinds of things, different kind of media with drafting film. I know some people use pan pastel. One of my friends here in Arizona just did a beautiful background. It was in a CPSA magazine on how she used a Copic marker sprayer. So she sprayed marker on the background like an airbrush. And so that was really cool.
Oh, okay.
I have a question, Barbara.
Yes.
Am I talking over someone? I'm sorry.
Just want to make sure you're on. Fine.
Okay. You mentioned using an eraser
Yes.
to erase out. Was that an electric eraser? You know, one of the handheld rubber ones? Or?
Oh, didn't bring my Mono Zero.
Okay, I've got a Mono Zero. I know what you're talking about there.
Yeah, it was a Mono Zero to do all of those fine lines. Let me put myself on.
And while you're doing that, once we have our line drawing, are we supposed to have this matted on or attached to a hard surface, or just leave it loose? Or
I prefer to leave it loose.
okay,
You do need to have some kind of a smooth
surface.
surface to draw on, because it is so pressure sensitive that if you have even a dog hair under your drafting film, it's going to show up in your drawing as soon as you start rubbing on it.
Well, I'm in trouble there.
I use a kneaded eraser a lot. I've recently been using a AFMAT eraser. It is an electric one if you want, or you can just use the tip plain. But
Okay.
yeah.
And then
erasers are definitely your friend. And one of the things I learned from Tracy Frine, I have it in my studio, is Mr. Clean Magic Eraser of all things. Using it dry, just rubbing it will give you some really soft blends if you want to get some kind of a gradation going on. That's what I use sometimes in large backgrounds.
And do you mind sharing your source for the larger drafting film sheets?
I used to be able to get it as a roll, but it's no longer available. So I get the really large sheets now. I think they're about 40 inches wide by, I want to say 30. They're like 30 by 40. And I get those through Blick.
Thank you.
Sure. Good questions, you guys. Okay, so
This is
Can
Karen.
I, Barbara, can I ask you a question? It's Patty.
sure.
I was wondering about spraying this, and I know at the end, I might be getting ahead, but I'm looking for less toxicity in the medias that I'm using. So you mentioned that you spray it once
Yeah.
at the end.
And the reason why is the neo colors especially have so much wax in them that I find that they bloom a bit. And I just don't want that wax bloom to show up looking dusty. So I do give it a spray. I have not tried spraying on polychromos pencils. I've been warned by some people that it can speckle on it. So I'm going to do some experiments because, well, actually there was polychromos in this one. Well, I was able to get the pinks. And it's just got a matte varnish on it so that I don't get a lot of glare. And I adhered this to a cradle board. And this is just one of those ampersand boards. I believe it has a clay board surface. So it does cost a little bit more, but it gives you a really smooth surface to adhere to. And it's that double-sided film that you're able to put on it. I get my husband to help me kind of roll it on there, and we get all the air bubbles out. The directions for doing it are on Esther Roy's website. That's Roy is spelled R-O-I, and she has excellent directions on how to do that. But that's how I learned that. And in fact, that's how I ended up mounting my poppy. This is on a 12 by 12 board, and I used a shiny varnish, obviously, on this one just to see what it was like. And I think I prefer the matte just so that when you hang it, you don't get a glare like that from some light, you know. But it's a personal choice. I think it looks really slick and kind of cool when it's shiny, but and it looks like it's almost under glass or some kind of a epoxy, but it's just varnish. While I'm sharing things back here, I'll go ahead and show you some of the things that I'm working on now. So this is the one that I just finished. It's a prickly pear cactus flower. It was a lot of fun to do. I did a lot of work on the back to try to get that depth. And all of those little spines were erased. And then I would put a white colored pencil over it. But I'm just fascinated with cactus. They're kind of cool. This is another one that I'm not done with, and I thought it would be a good one to share today because it's incomplete, you know. It's a start, but this is a Neocolor 2 background that I did on the front side, and it still looks quite nice and blurry. Oh, I have it upside down. I forget which way this thing goes. Yeah, it goes that way. Because this little stuff was on the bottom. Let's see if I can show you the back of it. I find that when I'm working on something, that is such a great teachable moment.
Barb, this is Anne. It seems like you're working almost exclusively on this paper now, or film.
I'm hooked on it. I find that the subjects that I want to do, like I really wanted the softness of the petals. I was able to really achieve it on that. Yeah, I'm a real fan, Anne. And I hope you will be too. But I think you can see on this one how much I did on the back. I really got in there with those darks. And I've only done the back of this flower. So I'm going to probably do some more, but it's coming along. But I like to work big because I think I can work the areas easier. And a lot of people that start out small, but I find it's harder to work small. So
It is.
I always tell the kids at school, go big or go home, and nobody went home. They all went big along with me. So I think we are ready to begin unless there's any more questions.
I have just one more question, Barbara. On your process, when you're going to put the drafting sheet on the cradle board, do you use the fixative first, or do you just go ahead and attach it to the cradle board and then spray it with the matte varnish?
I spray it with fixative first.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to make sure that I'm not trapping any wax bloom. I am so afraid that it's going to come up later because it often
Yeah.
does. So I want to seal it and then adhere it. And then I like trim around the edge of the board, and then I spray varnish at the very end.
How many passes do you do?
And,
One, two?
as many as needed. I look at it from different angles, you know, because I'm not the best sprayer in the world. I don't put any more than, say, 4. But
And which fixative do you find works well?
I like the Krylon UV archival, I think it's satin varnish, because that leaves it nice and smooth. It really, I think, looks like drafting film. You know, drafting film has a little bit of that frosted look, and that's the effect that I would like to keep.
Yeah, and there's a lot of opinion about fixatives to ward off that wax bloom. What do you like?
My favorite is the Prismacolor matte fixative, final fixative. Okay, it's not supposed to be workable. It's just final. And so that really seals it in nicely. Unfortunately, I think they've stopped making it because it's
Oh
really
boy.
hard to find. I have a couple of cans left and I've been using it, but I think that I'd have to go look in my cabinet to see what I have in there, but I've found other fixatives that seem to be working fine too. I'll go ahead and look in my cabinet when you take a break, and I'll share that with you.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay.
Barbara,
Yeah.
I hope that you'll leave all those lovely comments that you just said in the video so that we can write that down afterwards.
Okay.
Yes,
If at all
please.
possible. Thank you.
All right.
Barbara, this is Karen Smith. Quick thing about the very large sheets of drafting film.
Yeah.
Here in Seattle, I can get them at Artist and Craftsman Supply, and I think they do shipping online. So Artists and Craftsman Supply, it's up by the University of Washington.
Oh, nice.
They have it in rolls, and you can roll off how much you want and get it. At least the last time I bought it, they did.
And it's the double-sided.
Yes, yes.
Nice, because I've seen on Blick, they have the single-sided on a roll, but not the double. And you really want to be able to draw on both sides, so only get the double-sided. Very good.
Can you say the name again?
Yeah, it's Artist and Craftsman Supply.
And where is it at?
It's it's in North Seattle.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
But they are a chain. You can find them other places as well. They have them in Portland where I'm at as well, Artists and Craftsman Supply.
Oh, cool.
So they probably have an online site too, maybe.
Okay, I think we are ready to start then. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And we'll take a look at, can everyone see my line drawing here?
Yes.
Okay, good. So if by chance you went ahead and you traced the white flowers, I recommend that you erase that. And it erases super easy, just with any kind of a eraser. Because I felt like those flowers distracted from the main event, which is our poppy. I wanted it to pop, so that's why I left those out. So here we have our drawing. If you printed out your reference photos, I'd like you to go ahead and cut them apart if you have a pair of scissors handy, because it can get confusing when we start working the front and then the back as to, and that's why I wrote right on there, you know, make sure you're using the correct reference photo, because it can get, like I said, confusing. We're going to work on the front first though, and we're going to develop the front to the best of our ability first, and then we're going to flip it over and work on the back. So I'm going to refer to my handout, my little booklet of instructions. And so we're going to start with the yellow, I believe. And you can either look at, my camera froze, there we go. You can either look at the booklet, you know, to see where all of the yellows are, or if you feel comfortable, you can look at your reference photo. And we're just concentrating on the lightest parts here. Whenever I'm working with a color, especially one like orange, it's the colors that make up orange. The yellow, the red, and of course the orange that I'm going to try to include there. This photograph is pretty good, but it's not perfect. So I'm always trying to go beyond the photo, trying to add in the things that I as an artist would like to see in it. And so we're going to start with that lemon yellow. You don't need a super sharp pencil doing this technique. People sometimes really question the fact that I don't sharpen my pencil very much. And it's true, I don't want to sharpen it all away. Sorry, I've got a few little smudges there. Okay, so we're looking at the photo. And so I'm looking at this area right here. This is a very light area, so I'm going to put my yellow there to start with. And the surface that I'm working on is actually my Icarus board because it's a glass top. You need to have something smooth under your surface. You can use something like poster board, but just a piece of glass with a piece of paper under it works too. I usually don't have the heat on when I'm first applying my color. I use the Icarus board at the end just to smooth things out because I find that I'll put too much on because of the melting process. So I'd like you to notice the way that I'm applying the color. It's that old flick of the wrist technique that I use on so many things. And the reason that I do it on this is because petals have a bit of texture to them. You know, they're not completely smooth. It's going to look really interesting to see what your artistic mark looks like. It's one of the things when I was teaching AP art in high school that they were always harping on is artistic mark making. And so even though we're all using the same reference photo, we're all using the same colors, all of our poppies are going to look unique and different. And that's really cool. This yellow is really going to help that poppy glow because the sun was just hitting it just right. This poppy is actually from my mother-in-law's garden up in Canada. The poppies come up every year and I really miss not going up there and seeing them because they're just gorgeous. This one was starting to wilt a little bit, but call me weird. I think I think that dyeing things show a lot of movement and texture, and I like them. I think people often choose the most perfect whatever, and it's not always as interesting as some of the ones that are like starting to fade. And so I always finish one shape before I start another one. Always drawing next to what I've already drawn, so I don't get lost for one thing. But it's like putting together a puzzle. And I think it's okay if it doesn't look exactly like the photo. I want you to give yourself that ease and not that expectation that it's going to be photorealistic. I had little crumbs of stuff on my Icarus board and I could see it through my drafting film. So in some ways, I'm working like opposite that I normally work because I usually focus on the darks first, but with drafting film, I'm really doing more of the lights first. So again, it's kind of like working like a watercolorist. So whenever you're doing a color, think about what is next to it on the color wheel. And I know a lot of people don't have color wheels laying around their house, so I would highly recommend printing one out from the internet. I was always referring to a color wheel that was hanging in my classroom. But it's going to give more variety to your color. And that will give you more depth, more sophistication. Screen a little bit there. And you might find some things that you didn't really trace before. There's nothing wrong with going back in and giving yourself another little line here and there. I really do try to trace as little as I possibly can. So we're going to build on that, and we're going to go ahead and add some Spanish orange next. And so I am still doing the flick of the wrist, and I'm just adding to that yellow the Spanish orange. And it's going to help me make all of those little ripples that are in the petal. And you can see that I went outside the line a little bit. That's okay. We can erase that so easily. You don't have to be perfect. Drafting film has become so popular in our Phoenix chapter that if you go to our show out there in Surprise in July, you're going to see a lot of drafting film pieces. We'll be able to smooth some of this out if you want to at the end. But sometimes it's really nice to see the stroke. I've done this Poppy workshop quite a few times now, and I'm always amazed and delighted to see the different styles that come out of it. It's one of the things I really like about doing flowers too, is that it's such a safe subject. No one knows if your petal is maybe a little bit misshapen or not, because it's such an organic thing and all flowers are so different. However, if you're doing a portrait and that nose is a little bit off center, everyone knows it. So having variety in here. And if you feel like you have too much on part of it, you can go in and you can use your kneaded eraser and you can just erase out of it. And you'll even find that your kneaded eraser can also do a little bit of blending if you want. Or you can just keep building. The more pencil you put on, the smoother it's going to get. One of the ways that I like to work is using my computer screen. I rarely will print out a reference photo like this to work from. I like looking at things big and being able to zoom in and really study different areas of it. I think that's one of the ways that I can get pretty good detail in my drawings. And also when you're working from a computer screen, you've already got the light shining through it. And so it's just so easy to draw what you see and get that luminous effect. One of the reasons that I'm starting at the edge and I'm flicking in instead of flicking out is that I want this color to blend into the darker orange that I'm going to be applying down here. And so having that tapered edge there, that makes that area so much easier to blend into because then I can flick into it going up. So I just wanted to explain why I'm going in this direction. And one of the reasons that I really love this flower is that it had such great movement. I mean, doesn't it remind you of like a dancer with the skirt just flowing and fluttering in the wind? And the sun was hitting it, just so that I decided I would call it Sun Dancer. Even within these petals, you know, try not to do them totally straight. Get some curves in there because curves show movement. You can even exaggerate. The photograph really is just a starting point. It's you as the artist that's going to take it places. We all have our own way of interpreting, which I think is so fun. petals are very wrinkly over here. I'm going to turn my paper a bit so I can get to them a little easier. I think you can already see that having that yellow just added another dimension to this coloration. Okay. The next color we're going to add is our orange. And so to get that to really look like it's folding there, we have to let the light be in front, and then we're just shading back behind it. And again, get it to curve, not too straight. I'm going to flick down. And you can change your pressure when you want it to be a little bit darker. And don't worry, you can go back in with your Spanish orange or yellow if you want to brighten things up again. That's what I love about this. It's so easily adjustable. And then I'll go ahead and flick up. And what happens in the middle is that it blends together nicely. Got a little Spanish orange there. So you have to be a little bit careful around those edges of the petal. That's why it's good to start on the edge and then flip down. bit tricky when you get next to those black stamen. You're gonna wanna make sure that you don't smear the black into your orange. One way to avoid that is to actually trace those on the back side and then go to the front side at the very end. I didn't do it that way to begin with, but after I've done this a few times, I thought, that would have been a good strategy. I'm going to take a look at your drawings after this orange is put on, because I think we're going to be able to get a real good feel for how you're doing. And we can also take a bit of a break. I like the way that yellow is showing through on this petal, so I'm maybe not gonna put too much orange on it. Got to show those wrinkles. And it's really about being open to what's happening while you're drawing. I really try to keep an open mind and take advantage of some of those happy accidents that just appear right before your eyes. And now when I go towards that edge, you know, that's when I am getting rid of the outline. I go in there tighter and flick in. And that's what makes the line disappear, because in nature there are no outlines. It'll look more realistic. We don't have an outline. Don't worry if you're not drawing as fast as I am. Just try to get a lot done so that you have it demonstrated for your video of this workshop. What's really important is to let there be a contrast here between this overlapping petal. And I went a little bit too dark because the edges are just a little bit withered. And so now there's better contrast. Going darker behind and keeping that edge light. All of these little folds and crinkles over on that left-hand side get a little bit confusing. Don't worry, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just try to keep it loose and free-flowing. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and switch now to my gallery view. So if you would like to show your drafting film to me, it's going to be important to have a white piece of paper or your board or something behind it so that I can really see what's going on there. And I'd like you to hold it up to the screen there. And then I'll go ahead and spotlight you so that we can share. I'm gonna do Barbara Minor first. Okay, it looks like you could maybe use a little bit more orange, but maybe that's just your camera and the lighting. Do you have quite a bit of orange on there?
I think it's a lot lighter than yours. So I think, yes, I could probably put a lot more orange on it.
Yeah, I probably use a medium pressure when I flick, you know. I think you can go a little darker. I do like the way you're doing this this petal over here. This has more orange on it now.
Yes.
And
Yes, it does.
it's coming along nicely.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put Dana Ward up. Oh, that's beautiful.
I'm not going very fast.
That's
I'm not as fast as you, but I'm having a lot of fun with the blending. It's really beautiful.
Isn't it? Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, it's lovely. I like it. Good job. Just keep working at your own pace, and you know, if you miss something, you'll be able to catch it in the video.
It makes me feel good you say work at your own pace because I'm slow.
That's fine. Thanks. Okay, let's take a look at Judy's.
Okay, let's see.
Ooh, pretty, Judy.
Let's see, I can't tell where I'm at.
You're right there. Yeah, that's gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
I love all of the yellow, those Spanish oranges showing through. It looks fantastic.
Well, thank you. I'm trying to keep up with you.
Okay, well, you're doing a great job. Let's see, Karen Smith is next. Oh, that's lovely.
Thank you. It's I'm kind of worked ahead a little bit on the orange part there, but
Yeah, it looks good.
thank you.
You can really tell that, you know, that's gonna really bend the petal and
Yeah,
give that luminous effect. You have a nice smooth technique.
thank you.
Cool. Let's take a look at, let's see. Suzanne, I'm gonna put you up next to me. Oh, nice. Isn't that lovely? Good job. I love those yellow oranges. It looks so smooth, and you have a nice value range already. Cool. Let's take a look at Kathy in Flagler County. Do you want to put up your drawing, Kathy? You are muted.
There, I renamed.
Oh, thanks, Kathy. Yeah, isn't that beautiful? So smooth. It's lovely. I like it. Do you have any questions?
Do I need to darken the colors, or are we putting other things over it?
We're going to be putting more things on it, so that's fine. Yeah, looks good. Good, good, good. Take a look at Cheryl Metzger. Nice. That's looking good, Cheryl.
Okay, does it need to be darker?
No,
Okay,
it's good. We're going to be putting some darker color on it, so
okay.
yeah, so far so good. Take a look at Janet Clark. I like it. Your lemon yellow is really showing through. You might want to just put a little bit more of the Spanish orange over the yellow, just so that the oranges tie together a little closer.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Kathy Valente is next. That looks lovely. Yeah, you're doing a great job.
I think I need to work on that one.
Okay, I would say that the only thing is maybe your wrinkles are a little too straight.
Yeah,
I would
yes.
loosen up.
It need, yeah, it's too literal. Okay, yeah,
Just let it kind of flow.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to do one more is Cheryl Nelson, and then I'm going to let you guys take a little 5-minute break. Let's see, add spotlight. Ooh, isn't that gorgeous?
Well, I messed up and I grabbed the poppy red instead of the the Spanish orange. So I got ahead a little bit. So I erased a little bit.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I'm very slow.
Well, that's okay. You know, really, if you only want to do one petal, and then you'll know how to do all of the rest.
Okay, dear.
Yeah, looks good. It's beautiful. And that's what's so nice. Even if you make a mistake, you can just erase it and put the right color down. And sometimes, oh my gosh, I have to tell on myself that sometimes I make such a big mistake, but it ends up looking better because I made the mistake. My colors are richer, and so I don't apologize for making mistakes. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna take a little break. Now, if you want to keep on working, just go through the booklet and let's see, what is our next color going to be? Yeah, we're going to use some poppy red next. So if you're ready, you can go ahead and do that. I'm going to take a little break here.
Barbara,
Yeah.
can you put your picture up, please?
Yeah, sure will. Let's see, share screen. There you go. Okay, it looks like everyone is back, so we can move on to the next step. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, so this is the next petal. We're gonna start with that poppy red. Poppy red is a nice warm red, and so it's gonna help us really do a nice glow. I believe what's happening here is this petal is folding around backwards, and this is actually the shadow that we can see through the petal. For me, lighting is such a big part of my artwork that I really look for those special lighting moments. Up in Canada, where I took this picture, the sun, the sun doesn't set until like 11 o'clock at night. And so this picture was taken at like 9 at night. The sun was starting to go down a bit. And I hadn't, crossed over that edge, but this color is going to cover all those up. So I'm not going to even worry about erasing them. I'm still using more or less a flick of the wrist, because even though it's a little bit smoother texture, you don't see quite as much in the shadow area. I think it looks better if it's not completely smooth. It's having a little detail in your shadows. I always say that the shadows are where the real beauty is, because that's where the super rich tones are. And that's not going to be the final color. We still need more depth of color in there, but that's a real nice base. So we're just going around and we're looking for that same color. It's on this petal as well. There's a little orange on that one that I missed. Even though this is shadow, it's really bright. using medium pressure. Definitely going to need some darker reds to help define that curvation there. I think right on the very end of this piece here, I like some orange because that's so bright. Sun is shining through the shadow. And then putting on some poppy red. A little bit of orange in there. Again, try to capture some of the movement. Now we're going to have to go in with some darker reds. So I'm not pressing too hard because I want to be able to get more color on top of this. I want a little bit of orange where the sun is peeking through on this petal. And then I'm going to go in with that poppy red because that is a nice glowing bright red. And the orange just helps so much. I even put a little Spanish orange on there too. Keep that nice and bright. It helps to find the edge. Yeah, and then I'm going to just let it kind of fade down because, you know, down here it's going to have to be really dark. And so I don't want to put too much pencil on there that's not dark enough yet. So it's gonna look a little bit awkward until we get that darker red in there. But it's so important to get all of the values and to do some of this. It's almost like an underpainting of the color we want to show through. And remember, we can always make things darker on the back. What's hard is if you're not able to capture the light yet, the glow.
Barbara,
Yeah.
your strokes look so soft and pretty. Mine look like a little kid scribbling. Is your Icarus board on, or how do they look so lovely? Because you act like you're barely doing any strokes and it's completely covered.
Oh, thank you. To tell you the truth, it's not all that smooth when you're in person. I think the camera softens it a little bit. And don't worry, because I'm going to show you some blending techniques that if it is too scribbly for you, then we can smooth those things out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. There's been some artists that take my workshop that have almost a Van Gogh kind of style to their work. They're real expressive. And that's kind of exciting to see too. The wrinkles are definitely a challenge. Try to have them look soft yet fairly evident. And so with that poppy red, I want to darken a few of these oranges that are in this petal here. I think this is such a beautiful petal. I mean, it's got everything going on, all these folds and ripples and stuff, but I just want a little bit more oomph to that orange, and you can see that that just pushes it a little bit. Same way with some of these little wrinkles up here. I just want to give it a little bit more of this orange, and that just helps push it. But I want to leave this be real light. So this is a shadow as well, and it's a bright shadow, so it gets the poppy red. The shadow right next to it is pretty dark. Let me save one of the darker reds for that. I can see some streaks in here I'd like to refine. Just getting in there wherever you see just a little bit more is needed. Switching back to my orange here. And wait for some darker red in this area. And I can see that a little poppy red would be nice through here. Okay, I think that's probably all that I'm going to do with the poppy red at this time. Our next color is going to be, I think what I like to do is really go in with the Crimson Lake next. It's our dark red, because the crimson red is going to kind of be our in-between color. So I'm going to start with the Crimson Lake. I kind of wish they had named those colors differently because they get confusing. So this is the Crimson Lake. It's a very dark red. And I can put that over the poppy red a bit.
So Barbara, what do you think about the fact that the Polychromos people have now renamed all of their colors?
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not. Every color has a new name.
Oh, no. Wow. Well, that's going to make it tough, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
And to make it worse, I just got a tin and half of them are the new names and half are the old names.
Well, that's handy.
Yeah, so it's a little confusing.
Oh, brother. I'm going to have
Why
some
they needed
kind of a conversion chart, you know, of the old name, the new name.
Yeah.
Oh,
Exactly.
that's crazy.
Well,
Yeah, some of the new colors that Caran d'Ache has come out with, they are such long, crazy names that I don't even know how to pronounce them. They added some more colors because they're trying to keep up with some of the other brands, and I don't know. I don't know who's in charge of naming, but
they're doing a very bad job.
yeah, it's a strain. I would rather deal with names though than numbers. I'm not good at remembering numbers. Okay, I'm adding some of this this Crimson Lake to this shadow here. That was the poppy red. Of course, I'm not going to kill all of the poppy red, but that is almost the right color. Now with that over it. Again, don't cover all of it up. Let there be some nice subtle streaks in it. Right on the edge of this, where it's folding, it appears to be a little bit darker, but we don't want a real hard line there. So flick in or flick out, and that will help it blend. You can kind of find the pattern of the shadows in there and then just continue that through the shadow. And that's where you get those lovely subtleties. We are going to block some of that light coming through though a bit on the back side later. It'll help it make it look like it's a shadow and not a three-dimensional object that's coming out at you. Having this darker red really helps with defining the form. If you do want to get rid of some streaks as you apply, you can go in a slightly different direction, and that minimizes your strokes. So that's now a lot smoother because I went in at a bit of an angle, because there doesn't seem to be as much texture there. Going in, darkening up this petal here because it's got some dark shadows. There is going to be a point where the front of the film won't take anymore, but I think you'll be amazed at really how many layers we can get on there. That's why I like the graphics drafting film better than the Duralar. I found that I couldn't put as many layers on Duralar. Really went over there. Another really good eraser for drafting film is called Vanish. And I ordered mine off Amazon. They had some. Because one of my friends who does a lot of drafting films swore that it was just the greatest eraser, and I have to admit she's right. So put Vanish on your shopping list. Orange in there. Flicking up from this bottom edge to get it to blend in. Get some nice texture in there. I know that's not going to be dark enough, so I have to do some work on the back on that area. One of the Prismacolors that I really love is Tuscan Red, but unfortunately it is not light fast. And that Queen that I showed you from the Renaissance Festival, I used non-light fast pencils on it, and I really regretted it. And it started looking scratchy. I don't remember this being so scratchy. And it was just the color that was coming off. It was hanging in my family room and it was going away. So now it's all rolled up. I don't even have it out anymore. So sometimes I've used non-light fast pencils for my workshops because it was practice. But if I just have to tell you that it really pays to use light fast colors when you're doing something you really care about. And that's one of the nice things about being a member of the CPSA is that you get a Lightfast workbook, and they've done color testing for you and give you a rating system of the different brands, the different colors. And it just really helps you keep true to what's going to stick around.
Barbara,
Yeah.
do the in the Lightfast workbook that you were just talking about, do they give you alternatives to, say, a Prismacolor that, say, Tuscan Red? Do they give you an alternative in
No.
another brand?
Unfortunately, no. I wish they would, right? But I believe Karen Hull does something like that, and she
Yes.
sells her book.
Karen Hall?
Yeah,
Hull.
HLL. Yeah, because it's, you know, when you've worked on something for months, it's so disheartening to see it change. And the queen faded within about 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and it wasn't even in direct sunlight.
Oh, I would have cried.
Well, I didn't cry, but I was mad. I would think that a company would care more about their product, you know, and not put something out there that would go away. But apparently some of those colors are hard to reproduce another way. Some more dark red in this big. I'm going to turn it slightly so I can get at it easier. And whenever I turn my drawing, I turn my reference photo to so that I'm looking at it in the same direction. My mind isn't very good at flipping things around. Some little tiny speck of something, and it made that little mark, like a little pimple. But once I remove that little scrap of whatever it was, then it gets smooth again. So you're like constantly cleaning your work surface. That's the only bad thing about it, is that it's a little too easy to get unwanted textures under there. I always feared that when I was teaching this to the high school kids, that one of the bad words that was carved into the desk would show up on their drawing. Yeah, that would not be good. But you can also kind of use that to your advantage. I took a workshop from Pam Belcher, and she had brought some like silver trays that had all these carved designs on it. And she showed that if you just rubbed your colored pencil drawing over those silver trays that were etched, the design would come up in your drawing. So you can use that.
Cool.
As neat. Yeah. So it's not always bad things that you can rub, you know. And so she like went all over her house and started rubbing this and that to see what kind of textures would show up. I told one gal who was doing some concrete background, I said, go take it outside and rub your sidewalk with it.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier that way than trying to, you know, draw each
I,
color.
I did some gravel with a cheese grater.
Oh,
Put it over the cheese grater and did it that way, but I had to do a bunch of tests to make sure that I didn't poke the paper.
right. Huh. See, all kinds of things you can do. And it's interesting, you know, when you turn your drawing in a different direction, you will see things that you hadn't seen before. So it's a good idea to look at your drawing from different angles and stuff. I'm going to put some more poppy red in this area. And like, I'm going to want to go through and clean up my edges because that drives me crazy if edges aren't neat. And it's better. And this white area here that was kind of withered, it's going to show up when we do our background. And it really does make a difference, even though the white Icarus board is showing through there. It makes a difference if you don't put white on that space, especially if you put a colored matte board underneath it, even if it's like a light gray or something, you are going to see that white outline. And so I do want to suggest, please put white on that area. I'm going to do that right now before I forget. It's easier to reach when I have it turned like this. And when I took my class from Tracy Frine, he never uses white. He just uses an eraser to create all of his whites. And I find that it's just not white enough for me, not enough contrast for my work. I think his stuff is beautiful though. We were at a convention together and I found out that we were in the same class in college. We were talking about where we were from. I was from Iowa. Oh, really? I used to live in Iowa. And then we talked about the schools we went to, and oh my gosh, we were in the same class. We took the same field trip to Chicago to see the King Tut exhibit. And he was so enthralled with Chicago that he stayed. But I was looking for sunshine and no more snow, so I came to Arizona. Okay. Still need some more dark red in a few more places. And then I'm going to start working on the darker areas. The poppy is a really nice subject to work with because it has so many different shapes in it. It can hold your interest for a while. I think it was Leonardo da Vinci that said you don't really know a subject until you draw it. And I feel like I've gotten to know a lot of these flowers so well just from drawing them. I was watching a video the other day that Susan Virgil was demonstrating on, and how she approaches colored pencil and drafting film is she'll color the whole shape with a basic color on the front, and then she does all of her shading with the shadows and stuff on the back. And I thought that was really interesting to watch. She was with the Washington, D.C. chapter. Down here. I'm just gonna check on our time a little bit. I can't. How am I doing on time, guys? Does anyone have a clock handy?
I show about 2 more hours.
Okay, good. We're gonna need it.
What color are you using now?
I'm using the Crimson Lake.
Okay.
Even the Crimson Lake is not really dark enough for this, but it's a good base. And there's a good chance that you will not have this, you know, done to perfection during our time together. And that's totally fine. That if you want to work on it outside of the workshop, please feel free to do that. And then I'd love to see your finished pieces. If you want to email it to me, I can give you a little critique on things that I feel you did well. And if I see anything that could make it even better, I'll share that with you too. I have a file on my computer for the cream of the crop from each of my workshops. So I'm taking those pictures that people send me, and I'm building a file so that I can showcase some of the extreme talent that take my workshop and create these gorgeous pieces. I'm going pretty hard now on that area, but I'm just not getting it dark enough. So I'm going to have to go to it from the back side for sure. Just going through here to see if I missed any areas, and sure enough, this little piece is peeking through. So even though it might take a little bit longer doing this flick of the wrist technique, I think that it saves you time in the long run because it will give you that very subtle petal texture. And it also helps you do your blending. And we will want to blend this a little bit, I think. To get some of our darker reds, we're either going to use your Tuscan red, or you can use your luminance. I'm using my luminance right now just to get that a little bit richer, a little deeper red on those. And that's helping smooth it out as well. The lumens are so expensive that I don't use them that often, usually as finishing touches. I think they're a little scratchier actually than Prismacolor. I think the luminance work really well with Prismacolor because they're both wax-based pencils. I usually try not to mix the oil-based and wax-based. I've gotten some weird shiny things happening before when I've tried it.
Barbara, I'm a little bit behind you. What color did you use for the base of the bottom petal right next to the stem?
That is the Crimson Lake. You're talking about this area?
No, the big wide bold curve.
Oh, this one. This one here?
The very bottom next to the stem. What is the base color there?
Right here.
Yes.
That is Crimson Lake.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. But I am going over that with the super dark red. It's my luminance color, but you can use the Tuscan red. We're going to be putting some dark behind it too, because that is super dark. And it's really going to show the power of drawing on the back. It's funny, when I took that workshop from Karen Hall, someone asked her if she drew on the back of her film, and she said no. But she has a beautiful touch, and I guess that's why she can get enough depth in her drawings without doing that. I can't. I don't feel like I need it, but it probably depends on the subject matter, you know. She does those cute little animals. I'm using a little permanent red to bring out some of the subtle lights that's within a very dark area. Just going through and kind of detailing some of those ripples, ruffles. We have black grape at our disposal for creating a little bit more depth. And it's like areas like this that I really see, you know, it needs a little bit more push. Definitely on some of these really dark edges. Needs a little bit of black grape. And look at how that just popped this part of the petal forward. Putting that dark behind. And then you're starting to really get some nice values in there. You need the darks to set off the lights. Starting to make sense of some of these petals. There's just enough tooth left that I can apply a little bit of this black grape just to define things a little bit better. But my drafting film is almost at that stage where it won't take any more on front. That's when we turn it over and do some more magic on the back. Normally when I work on just regular paper like a Stonehenge, I'll put all these darks in first and then layer my color on top. So this is working in a much different way than I'm used to working. Whenever I come up to an area like this where it's very hard to distinguish one shape from another, I try to look closely and figure out, okay, what's darker, the bottom or the top? And I just go through and I say the bottom is a little bit darker than this one. This one is darker than this one. And that will help push things forward or bring things back. Erase a little bit of this lower part just so I can try to get a little bit of black grape on top of it. I'm a little heavy with my luminance color. Yeah, that's all it needed. You just take a little bit off and then that left enough tooth behind. Like that. A funny little petal back behind there. Same thing here. I can't put any more on, so I'm going to take a little bit off. And then I can put more on. And that's really the way that I like to work. I go too far and then I back off and then I adjust, and it just makes it richer. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. It sure is the best way that I learn, and then it's usually a happy accident. Not always. Oh, this is the fun part where it really starts to take shape with the darks in there. getting more definition, really looking at those shadow patterns. Notice that these petals actually have thickness to them. They're not paper thin. Cool little look to it. Trying to find the individual character of each petal. Really gives a nice level of realism. I would say that realism is definitely not dead, especially in the colored pencil arena. Finding your own style is so important as an artist. People tell me all the time, well, I can recognize your work right away without even looking at the name on Facebook. And I think that's strange because I've never really considered myself having a style, but I guess I do. Might find some edges like this one that has little white areas on it. Put those in with your white pencil. That'll just really help define that edge a little bit more. Yes, it's stronger than what's in the photo. That's okay. There's some light areas in there that could be emphasized. So that it looks different. I really wanted this shape to stand out from that shape. So to do that through contrast, we do it. maybe you've got an area like this that, you got some, I don't mean to push the electric part. Clean up your edge. And then I made a mistake with my eraser. And so then I can go in and touch that up too. Everything is fixable, because it's so erasable. That's so nice. Find that this is another contrast area that's quite important to get that to really pop forward. So putting that black grape right there, just boom, pushes it. And purple is next to red on the color wheel, so it's a natural thing to use for shading red areas. I have to tell on my mom because she influenced my art so much just by her own comments throughout the years. When I was growing up, she did not like purple. I did not own a purple shirt or anything. She said she just didn't like the color. And so when I took art, I had a hard time using purple because I had all of these negative connotations with it. And I find that really, personally, I like purple. And so you'll see it a lot in my artwork. And I think I have converted her to liking purple now. But we as artists can't listen too much to what others say. We have to do what really makes us happy and what we feel is going to make it look better. I think this is such an unusual view of a poppy that if you're not exactly spot on with your proportions, no one's going to know because I'm not used to seeing a poppy in this position at the stage of decay. All righty, I think we're ready to move on then.
Barbara,
Yeah.
I just have one question. If you're using the blending stick, is there a way to clean it once it gets used?
Yes, sandpaper is my go-to. They actually make these little things, can get them at the art store, and they just tear off when they get dirty, or you can just get sandpaper from Home Depot.
Okay.
Yeah. The secret though, and I'm gonna show you on camera, is how to clean it, because you can kind of destroy your blending stump a bit if you don't keep the roundness of it. So let me go to share screen. And let's go ahead and talk about that. I know some of you are anxious to get yours looking smooth. So I used to just have a great big old piece of sandpaper taped to a table in my classroom, and kids would come up and then they would just clean it. And it's using a rotating motion. You know, don't just get up there and grind like that, because you'll like lose your point, which is really handy. The area of the blending stump you're going to use mostly is this edge, this slanted side, because you can do big areas that way. The point is just for little tiny areas. So let me go ahead and show you this over closer, and I'll get my camera closer so you can hopefully really see. Oh, the lighting isn't quite as good though. There we go. Okay. So just by rubbing it, you can really soften those lines. Notice how I'm holding the stump though. I'm not holding it like a pencil. I'm really grabbing it so I can really give it some pressure with my index finger on top. And then that really looks smooth. And that's not even with any heat. So you can imagine how smooth you can get it with some heat. And I was talking to a gal last night at my show, and she said that she uses the Arizona sun. She takes it outside, lays her drawing out there for a while to heat it up. But like this area here looks a little bit rough. So I would just go in there and I would rub it. If you really want to get rid of a streak, go in an opposite direction, but I want to keep some streaks in there. So I'm going to keep going in the same direction. And that smooths it out. I like to, if I really get into all of these areas, I'm going to want to smooth out a lot too. I think it's nice though when there is a bit of a streak though. I'm not going to totally lose all of those. They're almost like little details, you know. So let me put it back to where it was. I hope that helps. And then you'll see once we put some heat on it, how it works too. Oh, I'm frozen. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to go on to doing some work in this middle part here. And those colors are the pomegranate and the black grape. So when we're looking at the reference photo, you can see that these are like little mounds. And so that's going to be where the pomegranate and a little bit of grape. You might even have to put a little bit of white in certain areas there just to make sure that they look like they're three-dimensional mounds. So we're going to start with the pomegranate, the nice reddish purple. And I do each mound separately, just one at a time. And that way they don't get all mushed together. And then put a little bit of black grape. And then just a little bit of white on top of that. And I can tell I'm going to probably want to put a little bit of black on the back of the film just to really keep that nice and rich. Put a little pomegranate over the whole thing to just kind of tie it all together. So that's all there is to it. Just put your color down. Make your little adjustments. And again, you'll probably kind of go off on your own and make them however you want. It's such a small detail. And you can always use your eraser to get back to the film enough so that a little white dot or something like that would show. And you can go ahead and use your black to clean up all those little stamens. They weren't real easy to trace. And there's probably some orange spots that you'll want to put in between so that you don't have the white showing through. And again, if these are not exactly like the photo, who knows? Who cares? They're just little shapes, no big deal. I like how they go in different directions and This way you can kind of define some of those edges too, to really make them sharp. And I think that's one of the things I really like about drafting film is that you almost get kind of the look of HD, you know, so defined because of that fine tooth. It's really cool. So that's all we need for the center. Go ahead and do the stem next. We're going to start with the dark green. And there's really not a whole lot that you can see in the photograph for the values. The light is behind, and that's why we get a little bit of this light on each of the sides. So we might have to just add a little value where we don't necessarily see it, but keeping in mind that the light is behind, that would mean that the very front is darker. So I'm not putting any, oh, that's olive green. No wonder it didn't look right. Let's see. Now, okay, guys, I'm gonna have to go back to my studio and pick up my dark green that didn't get transferred. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, so here we go. That's better. That's the dark green. And then we can put the kelp green. Yeah, I think it's important to overlap your colors. That helps. It looks smoother. I'm going to want to put a little bit of black behind it just to really darken that green. But that's dark enough for now. Okay, we're finally at the stage where we get to turn it over and start working the back. So what we definitely want to do is get our reference photo that says back on it, so we don't accidentally put colors where they don't belong. Make sure that you've brushed off any kind of debris. So it's under your drawing is free from.
Barbara,
Yes.
for those of us that are not quite as far as long, should we wait to work on the back until after we get the front done?
If there is like one petal that is done, then you can go
Okay.
work that one petal on the back. But otherwise, yeah, you better hold off because it really affects what you see on the front.
Okay.
Good question.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are going to use those darker reds on the back and probably some more of the black grape. So let's first of all see what happens when I use the Tuscan red. So on that darker part there. Flip it over to see. Yes, it is a little bit richer, but I think I would like to push it even further. So then I'm going to use the black grape on the very edge there, and then just flick some black grape in there. And then that's even darker now. So this is a real chance if you've you know, saturated the front of it, and I want to smooth this out a little bit. That's driving me a little crazy. I'm usually not that careful on the back, to tell you the truth, because it doesn't seem to matter. So my rule of thumb for working on the back is only work on parts that you want to go darker and use a color that's darker than what you have on the front. If that makes any sense at all. And then I can check it, you know? And that looks like it's about the right kind of richness. So basically what I'm saying is only use it where you need it. Definitely on these light areas, don't go too far, you know, because then you're going to block the light and it's not going to look as luminous. So only work on the darker areas. I didn't like the way this one was looking. It was looking a little scratchy. So I think when I put the color on the back, that's going to really help a lot. People have asked me, how do you get it so darn smooth? Well, it's working both sides of it. And it's going to be using things like the Icarus board or solvent. And then I flip it over. That does look smoother to me, although I think I'd like to do a little rubbing. We'll perfect that at the very end when we have the Icarus board on. I still would like to work on this area here. I don't feel like it's showing the kind of detail. It's probably because I just don't understand what's going on here. So I'm going to really work this side now and see if I can make sense of it. I'm going to go ahead and just go right straight to the black grape on this bottom part because that is just so dark there. But of course, if you don't want it to be that dark, you don't have to make it that dark. I just think that is kind of dramatic. I like drama when it comes to my art. I'm using some crimson red here on the back just to connect the two. That's such a pretty red. I think I got a little bit off here on my portions. It actually comes over here in this area. can fix that. Let's see what that crimson red is doing to the front. I've only gone this far, about halfway through that petal. And you can see what a beautiful, rich red that has now made. So I'm gonna add a little bit more on the back because I'm liking how that's looking. And I'm gonna continue it up through that area there. And I'm pressing pretty hard because I'm looking for more of a flat tone. So I'm going through and I'm looking at areas that I would like to see darker.
Barbara, when you're working on the back, do you ever have fears that what you put on the front is going to rub off on the surface beneath the drawing?
No.
Wow.
No. I'm pretty careful not to rub it around, you know. I am flipping it back and forth though.
Okay.
See
I mean, you're working on glass, correct? That you're on your first board. So if you were on just say, I don't know, Gator board, is that going to be different?
It might be a little bit more absorbent, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, you might want to watch that. Do you find that some of it is coming off?
No, actually, I'm working on a glass surface as well. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you might want to watch that.
Okay.
Oh boy, it is so easy to get confused on what side you are working on when you flip it back and forth so much. Some people like to put a little X or something on the back, just, well, not an X because that's too transparent, a B, okay? So if you put a B on the back, then you'll know. Because once you start putting it on both sides, it's not as apparent. Yeah. I want some of that crimson red through here.
I'm gonna have to leave because I have my cat has a doctor's appointment. So I'll catch up with the rest of this on the recording.
All righty. Well, thanks for coming and joining us today.
Oh, it's been fun. I learn something new from you every time, so.
Good.
we'll have it, so.
All right. Well, good luck with your cat appointment.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. I like to get some a little bit richer tone in this petal too. I'm keeping it kind of streaky though, because I'd like there to be some streaks. The back goes so much faster because you don't need that much. It's just pushing things a little bit.
Barbara,
Yes.
will you have time to show us a portion of the background?
Yes. Tell me, what time is it right now?
12:35.
Well, we better get started. Yes, we can pick at this all day long. Actually, what we're going to do now, you guys, is we're going to get out that second piece of drafting film that I asked you to get so that we can do some experimenting. And I am going to turn on my Icarus board. If you have one, go ahead and turn yours on too. It doesn't take very long for it to warm up, really. And some of the things we're going to do today are with heat and others with solvent, but it all helps. We do a fast background. I'm so glad you mentioned it.
What level of heat do we need it on?
Oh, not very high. I keep mine at about 5.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I'll go ahead and send everyone a Icarus board coupon if you're interested in getting one. Once you see the demonstration, how easy it is to blend, you just might want one. Trying to locate my second piece of drafting film here. Just a second. Okay. All right. So I divided my second piece into 4 squares. Let me get this up a little bit further so you can see. The first square, we're going to just do a gradation of tone just with colored pencils. So let's go ahead and get out all of the ones that we have for the background. And it's just a variety of greens and some bluish grays. We're going to start out with the yellowish green, the green ochre. And I don't want you to fill the entire square. That takes too much time. Just do a little 1-inch strip in the middle. Green ochre. I'm using medium pressure. And then we're going to go to the next color, which is the kelp green. Starting with a lighter pressure and then going to the medium pressure. Alrighty. Then some olive green.
What was the second color?
It was kelp green.
Thank you.
Let's blend that. And then we'll go to dark green. And then peacock green. That's kind of a bluish green, so that's a really good place to start putting in some blues. So we'll add the slate gray. And then the jade green. I know I did that kind of fast, so that was jade. That was slate. That was peacock. And dark green. It's always nice to have a good variety, you know? And then we did olive. The kelp. And then the first one we did was the green ochre. And that's fairly smooth, you know, it's not great by any means. But if we take a little bit of a blending stump and we rub it, we can get it to smooth out pretty well. But you know what? That is a lot of work when you're dealing with a big background, like all the way around the flower. That would like take so long to do. And so luckily we have some alternative ways of blending. And so I'd like to show you, I'm just putting some terpenoid in a little dish here. And there are a number of different tools that we can use to apply terpenoid. If you have a brush, you can dip it in there. You always want to kind of make sure that it's clean. Oh my gosh, I used this brush before. That's why you always want to check it. The Turpenoid is a paint thinner, so it's going to take out that pigment. Clean my brush with it. All right. And then just get a little bit on your brush. There's hardly any tooth to this. It's almost blended. So we're just gonna put a little bit on. And I'm just barely touching the surface there. Okay, and it's already started to do something. You got to be careful when you rub it though, because you can just wipe the whole thing off and it's like you haven't done anything. So be soft, be gentle, and you can do a little bit of a rub like that, and it does blend. If I press harder, I want to get a softer blend with my toilet paper. I learned the hard way. I took some Kleenex to a workshop. It was actually Puffs. And even though it didn't say it had lotion on, oh my gosh, it didn't work like my toilet paper at home did. And so I tried to be fancy and use something like facial tissue, and it backfired on me. But that's a nice soft blend. You can get richer colors by turning it over and doing the same colors on the back. The green ochre, the kelp, the olive green, dark green, and then the slate. Oh, I forgot the peacock. It helps with the transition to blue. And then finally the jade green. Oh, when we do it. The secret to success, though, is not having too much Turpenoid on your brush, that's for sure. And there we go. And now it's a much richer gradation of color. I've just been finding out lately, though, that using a Q-tip can really help you determine that you don't need very much on. I think it's because the Q-tip is so absorbent that when you put the color on. Just do it real fast here. Oh, green, and dark green, and peacock green.
Barbara, how do you do it around the flowers?
Very carefully. Yeah, I always like to leave a little bit of a space, and then I can go in with my pencil and I can clean it up.
You're using the pencils, not the crayons.
Right. This is with the pencil right now. And look at how that Q-tip really blended it nicely. And again, for a little bit richer color, you can do it on the back as well. I don't want to take up too much time showing the same thing over and over again. And here's the thing, if you don't feel comfortable using a solvent that blends so much, you could do it on the back side where you haven't done it yet. I'm going to show you the crayons next. And you can use, you know, any variety of green colors you want. I'm going to use ones that are similar to this so that you have a real comparison. So this is that kind of gold color. It's olive. And then I'm going to go with a more of a olive green. Just a variety of greens. And some bluish to the gray. And I mean, you can just literally scribble it on. Just with a blending stump, and I'm going to clean off my blending stump. Again, remember to rotate. It just blends. A bit of a circular stroke there. It feels like my Icarus board is starting to heat up here, so I'm going to just scoot it over to the heat. And then, boy, you're really getting some good blends that way. And, you know, I like the painterly effect. Something that doesn't even look like colored pencil. You can also use a tissue if you want a little bit smoother look.
What were you using before the tissue?
I was using the blending stump. And if you apply the wax pastels on the heat, oh man, you can really get a lot on there, and it just builds up that opaqueness that I often like for the contrast of the luminous flower and an opaque background. It just kind of melts it on there. It gets enough on there. I think a lot of people don't use their Icarus board because they don't get enough on there. They start using it and it's not doing anything, so they kind of give up on it. But really, it creates some nice, beautiful blends. You just have to have enough of it on there. And how much streak is totally up to you. And so, like Joanne asked about the, you know, how do you do this next to the flower? Is leave yourself some room, you know? It's another reason that I like to, you know, draw large. So you can use colored pencil and solvent. You can use the Neocolors. Usually I don't need to do it on the front and back. Usually the Neocolors are so thick, and I probably just didn't put enough on. To get the super dark greens, I'll even put black on it. And I know there are a lot of artists that don't use black, but I sometimes think that it is just enough to make things dark enough. And then
Barbara,
blending, yes.
can you put water on this or you don't want to put water?
I would not, even though they say that it's water soluble, when you put water on it, oh man, it becomes this wild thing that is really hard to control. I find that I can control it better dry. If anything, you could add a little bit of solvent to it. And then that will help you blend. If you don't have an Icarus, you can use that for blending. Right, it's starting to turn into just more of one color instead of the gradation. But those are your choices, and you can see that when I did it for my booklet, I just scribbled those colors on there. I left that little bit of edge all the way around it, and I did the background on the front. So I was going next to that flower. If you accidentally get some on the flower, you can just wipe it away. It'll just come right off with the tissue. So then that was the final effect. And I thought it was very illuminating to do that. So how are we doing on time?
5 minutes.
You in circles at all, or should you be doing lines?
I think I would do circles.
Okay.
It will give it a more blended look that way.
Okay.
But so if I was to do it like I did on the example there, I would just start off. It looks like I used the gray down here. Now, one of the things I want to kind of mention about how to choose what colors to put where is think about contrast. If it's dark down here, I would want to go light here. And so I would just scribble my gray in there. My, oh, it was like a, I had a lighter gray. Anyway, just scribble that in. Kind of a yellowish green. And if you have other sets of Neocolors and you want to add other colors, please feel free to do so. A little bit of that bluish green. Come over here. I like that. Yellowish green color. You can have some little crumbs there. And then I would take my blending stuff.
Is it best that we not try to get the little white daisies?
Yeah, I think they're distracting, to tell you the truth. When I was looking at the photo, I'm going, my eye keeps going to those white spots, and I don't want my eye to go there. I want it to stay on the poppy. So with this blending stump, I'm able to really control how close I'm getting there. And then when I'm all done, I can match a Prismacolor to that color and be able to get it right up next to it. But you can see that I'm on the heat. I just scribbled it on there. And I'm getting some nice blends of color. So this is going to work too if you want to use the Icarus board to kind of smooth out some of your other areas. And you can use a Q-tip. That's working really nicely. Here's another area. And you can really save a lot of money on blending stumps this way because this blends nicely. They also make those pointed ones. I've seen them at the craft store before. And so you can just go in there, smooth things out.
Tortillions?
Pardon?
Do you mean the tortillions? Is that the pointed ones you're talking about?
No, the Q-tips.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have cotton swabs for some kind of art. And yeah. So that's just giving that certain bit of polish, you know, that everyone likes to get. You still have some streaks so that it doesn't look flat, but man, that looks smooth, you know. So I'm sorry I'm not able to take a final look at your drawings and stuff, but this gives you a really good foundation of how to go ahead and finish your poppy on your own time. And I do want you to take your time on it and see what beautiful things you can come up with